Now, moving on to our secondary survey of a trauma patient. In this section, we'll be briefly discussing what is the head to toe examination in secondary survey. We'll be going through examination head, face and neck, examination of the chest and abdomen, and examination of limbs and other neurology of the patient. Why the secondary survey is important? Once we have completed the primary survey and done the adjuncts, once we have stabilized the patient, then we need to rule out other injuries which may not be potentially life-threatening at this time, but eventually may become life-threatening later on, or may be associated with the patient as well. So we need to rule out other injuries also which may be associated. Therefore, secondary survey is a detailed head-to-toe evaluation to identify all the injuries not recognized in the primary survey. It takes place after the primary survey has been completed. And as I told you in the algorithm, when we are performing the secondary survey, if the patient becomes vitally unstable, then we will move back to the primary survey again, do the primary survey, resuscitate the patient, and then after resuscitating, completing the primary survey again, we come to the secondary survey. That is how the procedure is actually continued. The components include history, physical examination, that is now the detailed history, detailed physical examination, use of tubes and fingers in every orifice, that is we have to do the basically DRE of the patient, we have to examine all the orifices as well, neurological examination, and further diagnostic test as well to re-evaluate for more injuries which may not be recognized during the primary survey. The history includes combination. For example, if the patient may be an old and using beta blockers and ACE inhibitors as well, we have patient may not be in the shock, but patient may be having a bradycardia. So could this patient be taking some drugs? We need to take out the detailed drug history. Examples include combination of beta blockers and ACE inhibitors, which may cause a profound drop in the BP as well. If cardiac output is not compromised, the patient is still in bradycardia, and there is actually hypotension which may be due to some kinds of drug which patient may be using, not due to the hemorrhagic shock. The simple form of remembering this mnemonic is actually AMPLE. A stands for allergies, M for medication, P for past illnesses, last meal, and then events in the environment. That is actually how you take the detailed history of the patient during the secondary survey. Then comes examination. Actually, logical questions are actually asked which may give us clue how it happened, where it happened, and actually what were the circumstances in which the trauma happened. And from head down to the extremities, we have to assess the patient. Includes log roll to again. Log roll is done to ensure that there is no associated aspect on the posterior aspect of the body, and body surfaces are actually examined. Then guiding injunctions are actually to basically look, listen, and feel. That is how it is done. And for limbs assessment, it's actually look, listen, and move. That is how you look, feel, and move. Now coming to the examination of head. The secondary survey starts from the head examination. It includes examination for the contusions and lacerations, also for clinically detectable fractures, eyes and ears examination for the local damage. There may be internal examination with ophthalmoscope and otoscope to rule out the internal injuries or not as well. There may be bleeding from the ears, base of the skull fractures may be associated with it, and usually the repeat of the GCS. Again, the GCS is done so to assess the overall neurology of the patient as well as the head of the patient, whether there is associated problems or not as well. From head, we move back down towards face and neck. Examination of the face includes for the signs of fracture, mandible, maxilla, or zygomatic fractures, which may be eventually a risk factor for airway compromise, and we must remember that patient airway can get compromised at any time. We have to look for lacerations, deformity, malocclusions of the teeth, and crepitus and contusions, along with rhinorrhea, which may be present due to base of skull injury. Then from face, we move to the examination of neck. We have to look for contusions, lacerations, that is on the look for it, feel for it, and auscultate and move for it. Then it is actually swelling and tenderness, then cervical spine step fracture which may be eventually the dislocation, which may be palpable as well. Minor looking contusions which may be damage to the laryngeal or tracheal structures. Now, this is cervicofacial. If trauma is present, then these patients' airway is at risk of getting compromised anytime, so we have to take that into account as well. Now coming to the examination, from head to face and neck, then we lower down towards the chest again. On chest, the scheme is the same. Look for the problems, then palpate or feel it, and then auscultate. Then inspected for the deformity and contusions. Seat belt sign which may be present, then if may be associated open or penetrating wound as well. Then we auscultate the lung with the stethoscope for the breath sounds and what are the problems. Identify the loss of breath sounds which we probably had by the time we are into the secondary survey. The primary survey has been completed and chest tube has already been in place. Then feel for the tenderness and crepitus may indicate emphysema or rib fractures. Then underlying lung and heart contusions may be present as well, which are actually diagnosed sometimes after the examination. And percuss for the hyperresonance. If hyperresonance is present, this means patient has a pneumothorax. Then move to primary survey again right from the start. Now examination of the abdomen. Again, the scheme is the same. Look, feel it, auscultate and percuss. That is basically inspected for contusion and wound, auscultated for the absence of vowel sounds, visceral damage is actually looked for, and then palpation for the detects actually rigidity. If there is some degree of hemoperitoneum, this will usually give the board-like rigidity to the abdomen, but usually that is hemoperitoneum is ruled out on the primary survey. Percussion is actually for the gastric distension. Use of ultrasound and CT is actually done, although fast is the part of the primary survey. We are already sure of it that there is no massive bleed inside the abdomen, but sometimes minor bleeds which can take place later on, that can be evaluated by use of ultrasound or CT scan of the abdomen. And once the patient is stable, then only patient can be taken for the CT scan. Then examinations of discrete areas such as rectum and vagina is mandatory. Sometimes there may be bleeding from that area, there may be dislodged segments which may be going into this area. Therefore, we have to examine for the bleeding and laceration of the rectum and vagina. Now coming from head, neck, and then we are moving to chest, then down to abdomen, then we move to pelvis and limbs gradually. In the examination of pelvis, we have to look for unequal leg lengths, pain and crepitus. Usually palpation of the pelvis and crepitus indicates pelvic fractures or acetabular fractures. And if there is pelvic fracture, there is always a risk of profound hemorrhage, and which patient must be having an IV line secured, and because patient can go into circulatory shock. Then usually do not repeat the examination too much. If the patient examination has been done once, we do not repeat it again and again, because that will not only be causing pain to the patient but will actually increase the bleeding from the venous areas, and this actually dislodges the clot and causes increased bleeding. From pelvis we move on to the examination of the limbs. Limbs are examined for the contusions, deformity and pallor. Pain and crepitus on palpation indicates fracture. If there is no repetition of the examination, actually if there is a fracture, it's actually painful and it should not be examined again and again. Then distal pallor and no pulses means there is actually a neurovascular compromise, and then it's actually an emergency and it needs to be taken care of. And whether it's associated fracture, it's a closed fracture, it's an open fracture, or associated neurovascular injury is present or not. Then we can go for the x-rays because now we are in the secondary survey. We have done the chest x-ray and pelvic x-ray, but we can do different x-rays such as cervical spine if we are suspecting some cervical spine injury, or x-ray APL lateral views of different limbs if we are suspecting any fracture of any part of the limb. Then neurology can also be examined, that is we can detect for the lateralizing sign which may indicate the loss of damage to the pyramidal tract. We also have to measure the power of the muscle groups as well as the sensory function of the upper and lower limb, which would indicate probably there's some kind of spinal cord injury as well, and reflexes has to be measured as well, along with the x-rays and CT to detect spinal fractures. Imaging is actually an adjunct which we may be required a lot. In the primary survey, we go for chest X-ray and pelvic X-rays, but other X-rays can be done in the secondary survey, which includes chest and pelvic X-ray is the primary survey, as I just told you, and then there could be cervical spine radiographs, could be limb radiographs, which may be included in the secondary survey to rule out other causes as well. Then comes the CT scans. CT scans are a lengthy procedure. Usually only stable patients should undergo CT scan. CT scan abdomen, spine may also be required to rule out different pathologies of the spine and abdomen injuries. Usually modern, there are spiral scanners which are actually fast, and 16 slice spiral scanners are actually, they go multiple slides, 1 mm cuts are actually available, so it's kind of a very good modality, but the problem is the patient must be vitally stable. Now coming to the MRI. MRI may be used in adjuncts, but it's only once we know that whether the pathology is such that we would require eventually the MRI. We not stable with unstable patients and identify the soft tissue injuries as well. And usually MRI is only indicated once we know that we need MRI for example, spinal cord entrapment or spinal cord injury, and we have ruled out other causes of the spinal cord injury as well. Sqadia is spinal cord injury without radiological abnormality. That is called a sqadia. Once we are suspecting that there is no associated problem, but the patient is still having a spinal cord problem, that is most likely the patient may be suffering from sqadia. So therefore, there is no radiological abnormality seen on X-rays and CTs. We may have to go for MRI. Ultrasound, although for diagnostic intra-abdominal bleeding, but it's a part of the fast scan as well, focus assessment of the sonography for trauma patient. That is why it is done actually, which actually whether intraperitoneal or bleed is present or not. But if once we're done with the primary survey, we can use ultrasound in the secondary survey as well to look for other intra-abdominal abnormalities. As I told you, EFAST is supplanted diagnostic peritoneal lavage, which can also be used. But previously DPL, diagnostic peritoneal lavage, was used, but now it is mainly replaced by fast scan. Actually, it's important to look for peritoneal bleed and visceral injuries, which can be used to diagnose abdominal problems by use of ultrasound. In this section, we've briefly gone through what is secondary survey, and we have know that it's actually head-to-toe evaluation of the patient to look for other injuries, which starts with detailed history, detailed examination of the first head, then face and neck, chest, abdomen, pelvis, and then the limbs. And why it is important, that it is important to rule out other injuries which are maybe associated with, which may have been missed on the primary survey. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.